Gayunpaman, kung hindi wasto ang paggamit, ang mga pestisidyo ay maaaring humantong sa paglaganap ng mga peste, pagkalason ng tao at hayop, kontaminasyon sa lupa, tubig at hangin na naglalagay sa panganib sa kapaligiran at kalusugan ng tao. Sa pamamagitan ng gabay na ito, mabibigyang kaalaman ang mga manggagawa sa sektor ng agrikultura, partikular na ang mga magsasaka tungkol sa mga tuntuning pangkalusugan upang maiwasan ang anumang aksidente. Pagbili ng pestisidyo. Bilhin ng pestisidyo na angkop at ipinapayo lamang na gamitin. Huwag bumili ng may sira o depektibong sisidlan o lalagyan. Kung ibabiyahe ang pestisidyo, ilayo ito sa pagkain at mga pasahero. Tamang paggamit ng pestisidyo. Huwag gumamit ng pestisidyo nang walang sapat na kaalaman. Mahalagang basahin ang etiketa, tignan ang tagubilin at ang mga ipinapayong paraan bago gamitin. Obserbahan ang lagay ng panahon, partikular ang direksyon ng hangin. Ugaliing magbomba ng hindi pasalungat sa hangin. Hindi nire-rekomenda na gumamit o magbomba ng pestisidyo ang mga bata. Isarado ang bahay kung may nagbobomba malapit dito. Laging hugasang mabuti ang kamay at parte ng katawan na maaaring nabahira ng pestisidyo pagkatapos gumamit o magbomba. Ihiwalay ng labahan ang mga kasuotang ginagamit sa pagtatrabaho sa bukid, lalo na ang ginagamit kapag nagbobomba ng pestisidyo. Bandian kung maaari bago tuluyang labhan. Kasuotang pamprotekta sa katawan. Gumamit ng kasuotan bilang pananggalang sa katawan katulad ng mahabang manggas, pantalon, bota, guwantes, maskara, sombrero, respirator, at iba pang pamprotektang kasuotan. Pagsukat at paghalo ng pestisidyo. Gumamit ng angkop na kagamitang panukat at panghalo. Sukatin ang pestisidyo at ibuhos agad sa tangke na may bahagyang tubig. Tandaan, laging sundin ang tamang timpla ayon sa etiketa o label. Isaradong mabuti ang mga pakete at takip ng bote ng pestisidyo pagkatapos gamitin. Ang pulbos ay dapat ihalo muna sa kaunting tubig bago tuluyang ilagay sa tangke na pambomba. Lagyan ng tubig ang tangke ayon lamang sa dami at haluing mabuti. Hugasan ang lahat ng kagamitan pagkatapos gamitin sa lugar na malayo sa tirahan, balon, daanan ng tubig at pananim. Ang mga kagamitang ginamit para sa pestisidyo ay hindi na dapat gamitin pa sa ibang bagay. Huwag hipan ang baradong tubo. Gumamit ng tamang pansundot sa bara ng nozzle. Pangunang lunas. Huwag bigyan ng anumang inuming may alkohol o gatas ang pasyenteng inaakalang nalason. Ang maling paggamot ay maaaring magpalubha pa sa kalagayan ng pasyente. Kapag nasabuyan, agad ilayo ang pasyente sa lugar na pinaggagawaan. Hugasan ng malinis na tubig ang mata na nasabuyan ng pestisidyo sa loob ng 10 minuto. Alisin ang natapunang damit at hugasan kaagad ang balat. Tumawag kaagad at ipakita sa manggagamot ang etiketa ng nakapinsala o nakalasong pestisidyo. Pagtatapon ng basyong lalagyan. Butasan o basagin ang mga basyo at ibaon sa lupa. Huwag sunugin ang mga basyong lalagyan sapagkat ang usok nito ay makakasama sa katawan kapag ito ay nalalanghap. Sa pagbabaon ng mga lalagyan o basyo, kailangan ang lalim ng hukay o pit ay 1 metro kwadrado. Lagyan ng ilalim ng 2 hanggang 3 sentimetrong apog o lime at 5 hanggang 10 sentimetrong kusot o sodas. Ito ay magsisilbing palagiang tapunan ng basyo ng pestisidyo. Ang hukay ay dapat malayo sa daluyan o kuhanan ng tubig. Paano malalaman na kalidad o hindi peke ang mabibiling pestisidyo? Upang matiyak na epektibo at hindi peke ang mabibiling pestisidyo, ang mga mamimili ay dapat siguraduhing rehistrado ang produkto ng Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority o FPA at bumili lamang mula sa mga dealers at distributors na lisensyado rin ng FPA. Sa pagsusuri ng mabibiling produkto, dapat ay isaalang-alang ang mga sumusunod. Una, suriin ang basyo ng pestisidyo kung may nakalagay na FPA registration number at i-verify ito sa FPA website gamit ang link na inyong nakikita. Pangalawa, tignan kung nakalagay ang mga sumusunod na impormasyon sa basyo: trade name, precautions, warning o babala, symptoms, first aid, hazard symbol, directions for use, frequency and method of application, compatibility, at name of manufacturer. Ang gabay na ito ay hatid sa inyo ng Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority. Para sa karagdagang impormasyon, bumisita lamang sa FPA website o mag-email sa info.info.
Isang masagana at mapagpalang tanghali po sa ating lahat. Welcome back sa mga nakatutok na mula pa kahapon, at kung first time niyo pong manonood, welcome po to the FPA Webinar Series Season 4, kung saan pag-uusapan po natin ang mga frontline services ng Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority. Ako po si Ella Santiago, ang Information Officer 1 ng FPA at ang inyong host for this season. So bago po tayo dumako sa ating talakayan para sa tanghaling ito, atin munang kakamustahin ang ating mga Zoom participants. So kamusta po kayo? We hope po na sana hindi po kayo inaantok ngayong tanghaling to. Gayon din po sa ating mga Facebook Live viewers. So kamusta po? Ayan. So mukhang handa na po ang lahat. So kahapon po, pinag-usapan po natin ang FPA mandate and functions, pati na rin ang license to operate ng Pesticide Regulations Division. Kaninang umaga naman po, pinag-usapan natin ang product registration ng Fertilizer Regulations Division. So ngayong tanghali po ay dadako naman po tayo sa product registration ng Pesticide Regulations Division, para po tulungan tayo na maintindihan ang proseso ng product registration for pesticides. Sasamahan po tayo ng Chemist 4 ng Pesticide Regulations Division. Let's all welcome po Ma'am Chris and Joy L. Minguez. Hi, Ma'am! Kamusta naman po kayo ngayong tanghali?
Okay naman po.
Baka may gusto po kayong batiin. Baka nanonood po yung mga lolo-lola nyo, ganyan.
Hello, good afternoon sa lahat. Hopefully, marami kayong matutunan sa presentation ko about product registration of pesticides and other agricultural chemicals.
And so, habang nagpe-present po si Ma'am Chris, pwede na po kayong maglagay ng mga questions nyo sa ating chat box at sa ating comment section. So, ready na po ba kayo, Ma'am Chris?
Sure.
Okay, so let's start na po yung discussion.
So, good afternoon, everyone. So, for this session, I'm going to present to you the salient features, our policy with regards to pesticide regulation, particularly the product registration procedure of the FPA. So, again, I'm Chris Minguez from the Pesticide Regulations Division, currently the chemist for handling the product registration of new proprietary pesticides and other agricultural chemicals, including the issuance of experimental use permits. So my outline of presentation for this afternoon is, first, I'm going to be discussing the regulatory framework for your overview, and then the product registration, which will include experimental use permit, issuance of experimental use permit, and the pesticide confirmatory analysis as the one of the requirements for product registration. And for the others, I would also be touching topics concerning warehouse registration and CAIP, or what we refer to as the certificate authorizing importation of pesticides. So I'm sure this has been repeated, no, in the webinar sessions, but again, I'd like to reiterate that the legal basis for our pesticide regulation is the Presidential Decree 1144 in the year 1977, which creates the Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority and abolishing the Fertilizer Industry Authority. So, in view of the urgent need to create a technically oriented government authority that is equipped with the required expertise, so FPA was created to regulate, control, and develop not only the fertilizer industry but also the pesticide industry. So for the mandates of FPA, through the Presidential Decree 1144, FPA is mandated to assure the agricultural sector of adequate supplies of fertilizer and pesticide at reasonable prices, rationalize the manufacture and marketing of fertilizer, protect the public from the risks inherent in the use of pesticides and other agricultural chemicals, and educate the agricultural sector in the use of this agricultural input. So just a brief overview of the structure of FPA. We have this divisions, and I particularly belong to the pesticide regulations division. So need pa bang i-focus? Anyway. And this is the organizational chart of PRD. So we have the chief agriculturist, chemist for, by the way, the note is outdated pala. This is not the just ignore the note doon na vacant position. So we have two sections, the registration section and the licensing section. So the registration section handles the product registration of new generic and new proprietary pesticide products and other agricultural chemicals, as well as label expansion, registration under third-party authorization, issuance of experimental use permits, which I will be discussing later part po. And for the licensing section naman, I believe these were discussed yesterday but by my colleague about the licensing of pesticide handlers, dealers, and commercial applicators. But I'm not sure if they were able to discuss about the import permit. But anyway, I have included it sa last part ng presentation ko. So again, for everyone's information and guidance na din, these are the list of offices in FPA. So the first one is Pesticide Regulations Division. So I've mentioned our external services being provided to our pesticide stakeholders, and we also have Fertilizer Regulations Division for the product registration naman ng fertilizers. They also issue experimental use permits. They also have licensing. So although we are one agency, we have dedicated separate services with separate requirements and procedures for securing such yun. And then we also have Laboratory Services Division, which provides services concerning fertilizer and pesticide laboratory analysis, FPA recognition of laboratories, and also we have the Planning Management and Information Division that is mainly handling right now the accreditation of responsible care officers, certified pesticide applicators, safety dispensers, and so on and so forth. And we also have our regional and provincial offices. They are mainly responsible for the monitoring and enforcement of the rules and regulations of FPA. And of course, we have our office of the executive director and deputy executive directors, and also our support office, the finance and administrative division. So, in this slide, medyo maliit lang, but this is the uh, workflow or process flow in registering non-generic products. So, this diagram shows yung entire process, and this show how the services are interconnected. Also, yung order, kung makikita nyo kung ano dapat yung una nyong a-applyan, which process are parang pwedeng to be applied simultaneously, alin yung prerequisite for applying to, let's say, license. So, if we can zoom in, siguro, how do we, anyway, so, paano ba to zoom? Para focus. Dito sa page 11.
Yung specific
Ito. Okay. Sige, ano na lang. Na, sorry. So, here is the small portion of the diagram. So, I'm gonna show you the process or the process flow for the licensing application. So, as you can see, let me just zoom in. Ayan. So, as you can see, application for license, it involves plant inspection, but not all types of license to operate requires plant inspection. Only those that are required of occupational health and safety requirements of FPA. So, example, pesticide manufacturers, formulators, repacker, extruders. So, yung mga pesticide facilities na yon, they are required yung plant inspection for them. And also, as you can see sa process flow, accreditation of the responsible care officer or ARCO is a prerequisite for the license, and also the warehouse registration. And I think na-discuss naman to yesterday with Miss Lovely, our licensing section chief. So, yon, before you can apply for, before you can even submit your application for license to operate sa PRD, you have to secure ARCO ID and also the warehouse registration. Ayun. And for warehouse registration, it involves also warehouse inspection that is being conducted by our regional and provincial officers. And for the ARCO naman, nakalagay naman dyan, it involves seminar and, securing a passing grade sa written examination. So, that's it for the licensing, accreditation, and warehouse registration flow. So, that is, this is pursuant to Section 9 of PD 1144, Sections 1 and 2, na no person shall engage in the business of importing, manufacturing, formulating, exporting, repacking, distributing, storing, and selling any pesticide except under a license issued by the FPA. So a separate license shall be required for each establishment or place of business subject to these rules to be conspicuously displayed therein. So there are types a lot of types of pesticide dealers and handlers based on activity. For example, dealer, pest control operator, drone spray operator, and so on and so forth. So, na-discuss ko naman, it involves the accreditation, which means authorization manifested in accreditation card accorded to individuals who attended the training, passed the written examination, and complied with all the requirements. And warehouse registration involves inspection of the compliance of pesticide dealers and handlers with the minimum standards of good housekeeping in the storage and handling of pesticides. And also plant inspection involves on-site inspection of pesticide manufacturing plants and other pesticide facilities to ensure compliance with the FPA's occupational health and safety requirements. So I've indicated here yung reference po sa FPA Green Book in case you want to check further details or yung mismong ating reference for the warehouse registration and plant inspection. So you can access. So actually, I'm not sure if the links are provided po no publicly, but we are now in the process of updating our Citizens Charter for submission to ARTA, and there will be some updates and amendments. So kindly na lang po, wait for the issuance ng new Citizens Charter, particularly sa pesticide, because we will be improving the list of requirements. We will be streamlining. And no worries naman because we will be issuing, I think, memorandum circular kapag may mga changes kaming gagawin. So, for the schedule of revised fees and charges for accreditation licensing of pesticide handlers, you may refer to Table 9, page 143 of the Green Book. So, let's go naman to the part of the process flow showing the application for EUP, the process for issuing experimental use permit. So, let me just zoom in again. So there. So kung makikita nyo, it's parallel siya sa application for license kasi usually for new registrants na talagang wala pa silang other activities, magre-register pa lang sila ng new products, usually they don't have the license yet, but we require them to submit na the license application for license. So meaning they have to secure na rin yung ARCO ID and certificate of warehouse registration. So for the application for EUP, the process also involves submission, of course, of the required documents and then evaluation of data by FPA and our external technical evaluators, and of course the issuance of EUP to the applicant. So once that na-secure nyo na yung EUP and you also have your license, that is the time that you can apply naman for import permit. So the reason, of course, for applying for import permit, kasi when you secure your EUP, it means, di ba, magta-trial kayo. So, you will need samples for the experiment. So, you will apply for import permit to allow you to import samples for the local trials and also for the confirmatory analysis. So, once you have the license, once you have the EUP, you can apply for CAIP. So it takes only 3 working days, and then once you have CAIP, then you will be able to import pesticide, particularly for the purpose of conducting local field trial and confirmatory analysis only. So when you have the sample, when you already have the sample, then you can proceed to the conduct of the local field trials, which may include residue trials, but mainly ano siya, for bioefficacy testing ng pesticide, meaning you will be testing the product's performance based dun sa kiniklaim nyo sa label. Ayun, so that is the process flow for the experimental use permit. So what is EUP ba? EUP is issued to registrants prior to conduct of any local field trials, which shall only be done by FPA accredited pesticide researchers following the FPA approved protocols. So ano ba yung reason why we need EUP? So the purpose is it limits the amount of pesticide necessary to conduct the test so as to safeguard the health of direct and indirect users of the product as well as the environment. So, for the list of FPA accredited pesticide researchers, I think we regularly update our list in the FPA website, so you can check the list. However, contact details are not included. So, you can email, if I'm correct. Ito pa rin ba yung applicable? Yeah. So, just email fpaaccreditation@gmail.com and coordinate with PMID for the contact details. It must be noted that researchers must not be affiliated with the product registrant, or it must be third party, except for EUP 1A and 1B, which I will be discussing later kung yung mga types ng EUP. And researchers must have valid accreditation within the period of the trials and has the appropriate specialization or expertise, for example, plant pathology for fungicides, weed science for herbicides, entomology for insecticides, and so on and so forth. So, I would like to emphasize that data generated from trials without EUP shall not be accepted for registration. So yun, need nating alalahanin. So, if you are going to, kung the purpose of conducting trials is for product registration, you must ensure that it is covered by an approved experimental use permit duly issued to you by FPA. Yun. So, here are the frequently asked questions. Like, do we need to apply for an experimental use permit? So, depende yung sagot. So, hindi mo kailangan ng EUP if the product is already registered and you will use it according to its label. So, hindi naman kailangan nun. Is EUP required if the if the product that you want to register is already generic? So nakalagay naman, I will also discuss what generic means later on. So yes, if the product is already registered, even if it is already generic, but you want to test its efficacy to other crops or target pests not listed in the label. You want to test the product using other application method, drone application or aerial application not listed in the label. Test the product using other use rates not listed in the label. And yes, required ang EUP if the product is not registered and you want to use it in an experiment or testing, even if you do not intend to register the product with FPA. So, why do we need? I hope you understand yung explanation about when can you say na need yung EUP. But if you have further questions, just pwedeng sa chat. I will be happy to answer your questions. And also, another frequently asked question is, why do we need to apply for experimental use permit before we apply for product registration? So, if you want to register a product and it is not generic, then you will be required to submit local bioefficacy data, which you can generate through conduct of local field trials. Hence, prior to conduct of local trials, you have to secure an EUP kasi kung maalala nyo kanina, data generated from trials without EUP will not be accepted for product registration. Ayan, so what does generic means? So generic products refers to products that were registered with FPA using proprietary data and complying data requirements but has already lapsed data protection. So, generic means parang wala ng data protection yung mga sinubmit nila na data so that yung ibang mag-a-apply, they don't need to comply or prove yung safety and product performance kasi basically they are just the same with what is existing. As long as wala ng data protection. Yan. So, if you compare the requirements for registering generic product compared to proprietary, relatively, mas konti na yung hinihingi naming mga data and documents for generic. Yun. So, another question that we always get is, I want to register my product. Is it generic or not? So, ayun nga, it is considered a new generic product if it is similar with an FPA-registered generic product. Similarities in terms of type of formulation, product composition, method of use, claimed efficacy, and product safety. So, the question is, it is not generic kasi wala ngang similar product. So, medyo paulit-ulit lang pala yung statement ko dito, but it points to the same principle. So possible din pala na generic na yung product mo but it has different claimed efficacy. Kumbaga, for example, this brand name or product has been registered for, let's say, 20 years na, and it is registered for use in rice, but you want to register it to another crop. So although the product is considered generic kasi matagal na siya, kaya lang yung approved naman na registration sa kanya is, did I say rice? Rice. So yun, hindi siya ma-exempt sa EUP kasi you are expanding the use to banana, so not rice. So yun. So parang mali yung tama. Tama. Another question, it's the same. I want to register my product pero I want to know if it's generic or not. So, unfortunately, FPA has no available list for your fast reference to distinguish generic products from non-generic products. So, wala pa kaming ganong database also na published sa website for you to distinguish if a product is generic or not. So, if you are not sure, you will have to ask us, any representative from PRD, so that we can check our records and then we will let you know. Kasi when we identify if product is generic or not, since wala nga kaming database, then we'll have to retrieve old files to check if wala na nga siyang data protection. Yun. So, another frequently asked question, why do we have to comply with the data requirements that are almost the same for product registration when we are just applying for an experimental use permit? So, parang yung question na to is, bakit parang kino-comply na namin yung buong product registration requirements? Gusto lang namin na i-try siya if effective, or parang gusto lang namin i-experiment to see the product performance, but nire-require na kami ng talks, ng environmental effects, mga ganong data. So, why is it necessary? So, number one, whether it is an application for EUP or for product registration, FPA has to evaluate first the product safety to human health and the environment before it can be sold in a market or can be used for experiments. So also, second, EUP application can also serve as your gauge. So meaning, if a product is denied for an EUP due to health and safety risk or unacceptable risk, it is certainly will be denied for product registration as well. So, kumbaga, gauge nyo yung EUP na kung safe siya and pinayagan siya for local trials, then meaning the chances of it being denied would probably sa mga sa product performance, but for the safety, health and safety risk, na screen na yon before pa sa product registration application. So ina-assess na siya sa EUP application para rin, 'di ba, walang resources na masasayang. Pinayagan kayong mag-trial and yet meron pala siyang health and safety risks, tapos hindi rin siya matutuloy for product registration. So yun, it also serves as our gauge then. And then lastly, if the experiment is for research and product development only, data requirements are relatively less than the data requirements for experiments that is being conducted for registration purposes. And such trials can only be done in FPA licensed site, also referred to as research station. And license requirements for research stations follow the same requirements for licensing of end users or institutional user. So there. So ito yung type of experimental use permits. So EUP 1A covers coded compounds and formulations in the initial stages of product development to be tested only within the company's research station. And take note, data generated from the trials is used for research purposes only and is not intended for product registration. So, the same is true for EUP 1B, except that yung 1A is tested only within the company research station, and for EUP 1B is to be tested in FPA licensed site outside the company's research station. And ito naman yung EUP 2, which I have mentioned paulit-ulit kanina. This covers those pesticides and other agricultural chemicals in the pre-market stage for the purpose of product registration. So, it could be generation of bioefficacy and residue data. And for the last type of EUP, it's the EUP 3, and it covers registered pesticides to be tested for additional uses or for label expansion, which requires bioefficacy and residue data generation. So, yung EUP2, i-register mo yung pesticide to conduct trials to prove your label claims. And for type 3 naman, it concerns product na registered mo na, but you want to expand its use to other pests or other crop. So, yun yung different types of experimental use permits. So, the data requirements for EUP application is a subset of the requirements for registration, and these are particularly indicated in the FPA Green Book. So, Table 2, page 52, describes the data requirements that are particular for the conventional pesticides or yung chemical pesticides and other agricultural inputs such as yung mga adjuvants, surfactants, and all. And for Table 7 naman, page 109 describes the data requirements that are particular for the biorational pesticides, or these are pesticides that are naturally occurring or if it's synthesized, it must be structurally identical to a naturally occurring chemical. So, for example, biochemical control agents or microbial control agents. And for for chemical pesticides and other agricultural chemicals, data requirements in Table 2 are specified whether the requirement is for formulated product and for the technical material or technical concentrate. So when we say formulated product, it refers to the finished product or the end use product. And when we say technical material or technical concentrate, it refers naman to the material resulting from a manufacturing process comprising the active ingredient together with the associated impurities. So technical material or technical concentrate is used in preparing the formulated product. So parang sila yung raw materials. And with regards to the standard guidelines or policy of FPA in terms of pesticide registration, both of these are being registered. So, required siya. Hindi lang yung formulated product, also yung technical material, nire-register din po yan per source. Meaning, if you have source from China for the same formulated product, and then you also have supplier of raw mat, let's say from Germany, both those suppliers must be registered with FPA. So, China, Germany, France, even if same company siya, let's say company X, owned naman niya yon, yung China, yung Germany, yung France, it still has to be registered with FPA for the formulated product. So you may so makikita nyo naman sa table 2 na sinabi ko, page 52, the different sections or different data requirements na kailangang i-comply when you are submitting an EUP application or product registration application. So section 1, general information, usually it includes yung name ng registrant, the brand name, the description of the production process, and the product specification. This describes yung physical and chemical characteristics of your formulated product and also the technical material. So it's more on the chemistry of the product. And then section 3 is the bioefficacy. So this section, data requirements, should show the product's performance in controlling the insect pests or the weeds or the disease. It also has to show yung phytotoxicity niya or yung parang yung safety naman niya when the product is being applied to the plant. So, dyan naka-lodge sa bioefficacy. And then we also have toxicology. So, for section 4, ito naman yung mga studies about the hazards niya sa human. But there are tests, hindi naman siya, yung data niya, of course, it's not, ang test subject's not human, but may mga specific species na indicated naman sa test guidelines para makapag-submit ng toxicology. And then section 5 is the human exposure and safety. So, yung exposure assessment naman ng applicator, ng bystander. So, yun, it is included in section 5, human exposure and safety. And section 6 is environmental effects. So, this pertains to the effects of the pesticide products in the environment. So, paano ba natin siya ma-check yung effects sa environment? Usually, yung effect niya sa fishes, sa soil, sa birds, sa mga mga earthworms, ganun. So, yun yung environmental effects, mga ganong studies yung sinasubmit dito. And for Section 7 naman, nabaliktad ko pala. Section 7 is actually residue in food and feeds. So, residue naman pertains to the mga studies about yung mga pesticide residue na naiiwan sa crops kapag nag-apply tayo ng pesticide. So, data na nade-derive natin sa ganitong data submissions is yung maximum residue limits and also the pre-harvest interval. And hindi ko lang nalagay, but it is also one of the most important aspects na kailangang i-comply ng mga registrant natin is yung Section 9, which is the pesticide product labeling. So, we have I think, an entire chapter for that, discussing ano yung mga requirements and standard ng FPA when it comes to pesticide labeling. And yung pesticide labeling na yon, lahat ng information doon is derived from these sections. So, product specification, ano bang laman niyang active ingredient, anong yung amount of each active ingredient na nasa formulation mo. If it's flammable, nakalagay din yun sa product specs, and then you have to reflect it sa label. Sa bioefficacy naman, Section 3, saan siya effective? So, under the directions for use, ilalagay doon anong application rate na effective. For the tox naman, ano yung mga hazards niya, ano yung category niya. Let's say it's category 2, so relatively medyo toxic siya, so ano rin siya sa label, and what are the risk mitigation na ilalagay. For example, these should only be applied by let's say certified pesticide applicator. So, doon natin makikita yon sa toxicology. And for the human exposure and safety, ano naman yung mga need na usually dyan nakalagay, ano yung mga risk, mitigation na gagawa. Like, ano dapat yung PPE na isusuot niya, enough na ba na ganito, or as in full. So, may mga ganong study, and yun yung mga information na madederive natin, which will be reflected sa product label. So, for example then, sa Section 6, environmental effects, meron pala siyang effect sa birds or sa fish. So, one of the measures na pwedeng ilagay sa label is, do not apply near bodies of water. Do not, although matik naman yun, do not dispose it sa, of course, sa rivers and ganyan. And sometimes, if it's really particularly, let's say, toxic siya sa birds, ganyan, FPA can determine yung approved use. Like, for example, pwede lang siya sa greenhouse. May mga ganon. And then, yung residue naman, as I've said, yun nga, yung pre-harvest interval, doon din makikita na kung ano katagal ang aantayin after pesticide application before the farmer can, harvest their crop produce. So, yun. So, lahat yan interconnected and marireflect, and nare-reflect po siya sa product label. Yun. So, kumbaga, in essence, yung mga laman sa product label, may basis siya, and dito siya usually nakukuha sa mga sections na ito, na pinapasa ng registrant sa amin. So, we have a checklist of requirements for applying EUP, and as I've mentioned nga, we are in the process of revising our Citizens Charter. We are trying to streamline pa the list of requirements, but nakalagay ito sa Green Book natin, or our regulatory policies and implementing guidelines, that special circumstances often arise from the nature of a pesticide or its use or the results of testing, which dictate whether more or less or different data are required, and FPA shall make modifications whenever appropriate and necessary. And then all data shall be sufficient, scientific quality, and reliable to answer questions of safety and efficacy without doubt or uncertainty. And studies done in compliance with good laboratory practices, such as those of OECD, US, FDA, EPA, and in consonance with the acceptable test protocols, shall stand the best chance of meeting the standard. So, yon yung important na provision then that we must take note. Um, the third paragraph says deficient or invalid studies can be sufficient grounds to deny an application and or to require a replacement study. So, I think that's it for the discussion on the data requirements. In this slide naman, it shows you the revised fees and charges for the pesticide product registration, which is pursuant to Administrative Order number 13, series of 2000. So, let's go back sa sa process flow. So, as we've already discussed, the licensing process flow, the accreditation, warehouse registration, issuance of EUP, application for CAIP, conduct of trial. So, let's say that you have already concluded your local field trials. What will be next? So here, I'm showing to you yung process flow. And as you can see, simultaneous, when you apply for application for product registration, that is the time na meron ka ng results from the local trials, and then you can also submit na the pesticide samples for confirmatory analysis. So the confirmatory analysis, it involves laboratory testing by FPA Laboratory Services Division or any other FPA recognized laboratory, and it also involves the evaluation of that test results. While for the product registration application naman, it involves data evaluation. So, it undergoes review by FPA and our external technical evaluators. So, i-check namin yung results na na-generate from the conduct of local field trials. So, once that na-comply na yung requirements for the confirmatory analysis and based on data evaluation din ng submission for product registration application, compliant naman siya, proven naman yung bioefficacy claims, na-establish na yung good agricultural practice or yung GAP, then FPA can now issue certificate of product registration. And when you have that CPR, based dito sa process flow, as you can see, you can again apply for import permit. That is per shipment basis, by the way. For the importation, regular importation na ng pesticide product mo for market and sale. So, the import permit is no longer restricted kasi as you remembered, yung CAIP kanina during EUP stage was restricted yung quantity. But once you have secured yung CPR and your license, then you can apply for import permit for the purpose of marketing your pesticide products. And again, CAIP is per shipment basis. So every time na mag-ship ka, you will have to apply for this permit kasi yun yung papakita nyo sa Bureau of Customs for the release. Yun. So again, what is pesticide confirmatory analysis? This is to confirm the declared product specifications. Pesticide products are analyzed in the laboratory by determination of active ingredient content, which is done by FPA laboratories and other FPA recognized laboratories. So basically, tinatest lang yung active ingredient content if it's within the the declared, it's if it's within the product specifications na dineclare sa FPA. Yun. So PRD receives the pesticide samples from the product registrants or the applicants, and we endorse them to the laboratories, and once we receive the test results, we evaluate the results if it's within the acceptable limits. According, ang reference namin is the FAO guidelines on pesticide specifications. And again, pesticide confirmatory analysis are required for all types of product registration. I guess except for TPA or registration under third-party authorization. So, issuance of certificate of product registration, its rationale is that it ensures that pesticides and other agricultural chemicals meet the prescribed standards of FPA before they are imported, manufactured, formulated, distributed, and sold in the Philippines. And these standards are set by FPA to ensure product quality, suitability, bioefficacy, and safety to end users and to the environment. Hence, it involves stringent process of evaluation with the endpoint that benefits outweigh the risks in the use of product. So these standards established by FPA are harmonized naman with other countries. So these are not unique. So ito talaga yung standard requirements for registering product. There. So I think we have already finished discussing the process flow. So again, I'd like to reiterate na this process flow is showing you the initial registration of new non-generic products. So it shows you the complete process, but not necessarily na pagdadaanan nyo lahat, because it depends on the type of product registration, the nature of your submission, or the nature of your available data that you will be submitting to us. So, hindi siya required. Again, so, yon. To give you the types of product registration, we have based on this category is based on the nature of your nature of your submission. So for the first type, yung minimension ko kanina pa is yung product registration of new proprietary and new pesticide formulations. So this category covers all new pesticide products to be registered using data with proprietary nature, and it includes new end-use product containing new or currently registered active ingredient, or a combination of new active plus currently active, or combination of currently registered active ingredients. So in this type of product registration, you submit data that is of proprietary nature. And then for the second type of product registration naman is the registration of new generic products. So this covers all new pesticide products to be registered on the basis of other registrants' data, which has already lapsed the 8-year or 3-year proprietary data protection, provided that the product is identical or substantially similar to any currently registered pesticide, or differ only in ways that would not significantly increase the risk of unreasonable adverse effects. So for the first type of registration, as shown here, yung requirements niya is yung mga diniscuss kong sections kanina, from section 1 to 9. But for the registration of new generic pesticides, ang required lang dito is the chemistry or yung product specification, yung section 1 and 2. No need to prove yung bioefficacy since it is identical or substantially similar to the current or existing registered pesticide, also the same, yung safety, it must also be the same. So, yun na lang yung hinihingi namin, yung product specifications, general information, and also the required confirmatory analysis. The third type of product registration naman is the product registration of pesticides under the third-party authorization. So this category refers to a product registration under an agreement between two companies, the primary registrant who issues the TPA and the company who receives the TPA, where the latter is authorized to cite a proprietary data owned by the primary registrant or its supplier, and or authorized to sell or distribute a product that is originally registered by the primary registrant. Um, the authorized company shall still comply with other requirements like filing of application forms, payment of fees, and submission of technical and analytical grade samples and labels. But I have to check this part, yung submission of technical analytical grade samples, and if this is required for TPA. So let me just verify it. Anyway, so the third-party authorization is allowed only for pesticide products with full registration. And for I think this is the last, no, the fourth type of product registration is the label expansion. So this covers the expansion of use or claims of a pesticide product. This may involve additional crops sa label, additional target pests, or new method of application in the product label. And then the fifth type is the renewal. So it means kapag nag-expire na yung CPR nyo after 3 years, then you will apply for renewal. And the renewal of registration may be filed 3 months before its expiry date, and application for renewal filed within 1 month after expiry date of its registration shall be subjected to 50% surcharge, while those filed after the charge. Have clarified this provision, but I forgot if every year ba siya or 100 surcharge. Let me also verify that. And for the last type of product registration, this refers to the modification in the registration of a registered product, such as change in brand name, change in recipe, use rate, PHI, MRL, or the name of the manufacturing or formulation. So I've mentioned this before. We are currently updating our checklist. So probably next year we'll have a new set of checklist, streamlined list of requirements. And I have mentioned also this before. CAIP, it's being issued to licensed importers with corresponding registered products and or EUP, allowing importation of technical material, formulation, and inert ingredients. And issuance of CAIP and export permit is per product and per importation basis. And CAIP will not be issued if importer is not licensed and kapag walang valid EUP or CPR. So yun, we are updating our Citizens Charter. It's ongoing. So Citizens Charter is a detailed, parang manual siya for the step-by-step procedure per services. And it also describes yung mga requirements, the total processing time, and the mga applicable fees. So if you have if you want to learn more about our pesticide regulations and implementing guidelines, our FPA Green Book is published in our official website. You can download them so you can have your own soft copy because uh, we are currently not producing hard copies of this manual. We only, publish the soft copy. I think that's it. Yeah.
So thank you so much po, Ma'am Chris, for that wonderful presentation. So may questions po from our Zoom participants. So how long po ba is the usual timeline for EUP approval from submission? According daw po to the Blue Book, EUP should be submitted a month before the conduct of the study. Tama po ba na 1 month?
Um, ang sabi niya Blue Book, but
Opo.
Blue Book pertains to fertilizer po kasi eh. So, I'm not sure if this is a typo error. But for the pesticide Green Book, the timeline for EUP approval is by stages kasi. So, the timeline for data evaluation itself is 20 working days for each data aspect as I've mentioned. So, yun, it depends on the, yung completeness ng submission, yung palitan ng conversation kapag may mga compliance or questions yung technical evaluator. So, it's not a straightforward process na pagka na-submit mo na lahat, it will still undergo further evaluation by our technical evaluators who are, by the way, not who are third party or are external from FPA.
So
yun.
hindi po pala talaga siya isang fixed na time frame. So, it varies po.
Opo, it varies. Yun. So, the question is, I think, for fertilizer nga. Yun. So, kinonfirm ni ma'am.
Clarify lang po namin, Pesticide Regulations Division, product registration po tayo for today. So, next po, paano daw po kapag na-late daw po sila ng submit ng documents for renewal? May charge daw po ba?
Yes, ma'am, Cecil. Kapag na-late po kayo, as I've mentioned a while ago, may surcharge. So, I think, ano ba yung nakalagay ko? 1 month after kasi we allow naman submission of applications even 3 months before its expiry date. So, kindly, ano na lang po, be mindful of the expiry dates of your certificates.
Sa ating Facebook Live naman po, may question po, Ma'am Chris. I would like to ask daw po, what if our product for EUP registration is a post-harvest product? Sa requirement list, may section po kasi na hindi siya applicable. Can we put not applicable po?
So, to clarify, post-harvest products, if it's considered ano pa kasi agricultural chemicals and it's covered under the jurisdiction of FPA. So, meaning, covered talaga siya ng FPA regulation. For the tanong niya na there are data requirements that are not applicable nga due to the nature of the product. Allowed naman po yun. As I've mentioned kanina dun sa binanggit kong provision sa FPA na special circumstances may arise. So, ang sagot lang dun, yes po, pwede yung i-justify but do not put NA or not applicable. So, yun. You have to provide explanation why it's not applicable for our evaluation purposes.
Po, so balik po tayo sa ating mga Zoom participants. May tanong din po, to whom or what email should we ask for sample endorsement for laboratory analysis to FPA recognized laboratory daw po?
Okay. So, you may email fpa.prd.generic@gmail.com. Our chemist one currently handles the endorsement of laboratory samples. Pero it doesn't mean na kapag hindi siya sa FPA laboratory ay dadaan pa rin siya sa amin. We will still endorse it dun sa lab. So, you may email fpa.prd.generic@gmail.com.
So, how about naman po sa in the updated Citizens Charter, will disinfectants guidelines be included daw po?
So currently we are in the process of um uh, creating, or actually not in the process pa kasi kina-coordinate pa namin yung consultant for the vet products. Hopefully, if mahabol namin siya or meron na kaming at least ma-established, ilalagay po namin siya sa Citizens Charter. But given the timeline, this December na kasi siya isa-submit yung revised Citizens Charter. So, baka hindi pa siya masama, baka next year pa po.
So, ayun po. Sana po nalinawan po kayo. Natulungan po kayo ni Ma'am Chris sa mga questions niyo for today. So, for the last question po, Ma'am Chris, para naman po ito sa ating mga farmers. Paano po nila malalaman na yung pesticide product na binili or binibili po nila ay registered kay FPA?
Okay. For the verification po, kung rehistrado ba yung kanilang nabili or binibiling product, makikita nyo sa label na una, dapat may registration number yon. So, pangalawa, pwede nyo pong i-check sa website namin. Meron po tayong regularly na ina-update doon na list of registered products kung saan nakalagay doon yung brand name, anong company yung nagrehistro, para saan yung gamit niya, paano siya gamitin. So, pwede nyo pong i-check sa website po namin yung listahan.
So, we hope po na nag-take note po kayo sa mga important reminders and points to remember na na-discuss ni Ma'am Chris for today. So, mukhang naiintindihan naman na po ng participants natin for today kung paano po ang proseso ng product registration sa Pesticide Regulations Division. So, maraming salamat po, Ma'am Chris, sa pagpapaundak sa amin ngayon. So, para po sa ating mga participants, ma-access nyo po ang ating post-evaluation sa ating chat box at sa ating comment section. Make sure na masagutan nyo na po siya agad dahil 1 hour lamang po namin bubuksan at tatanggap ng responses ang aming Google Form. So, we hope po na marami kayong napulat na aral sa episode na ito. At magkita-kita po ulit tayo bukas ng 10:00 ng umaga para sa isa na namang makabuluhang talakayan. Dito lamang sa FPA Webinar Series Season 4.